And in sport, especially, which I think goes quite well into things we're going to potentially discuss in social media and racism. The Kick Racism Out of Football campaign was launched in 1993. It's a long time ago. Yeah, what's that? 28 years ago. I don't think we've come a long way. In 28 years in football, the only thing we've really stopped is we don't see maybe necessarily bananas and stuff being thrown on the pitch as much anymore.
You do, don't
right?
you? You do.
Sometimes it happens, but not as much. Not as much. Yeah. But in 27 years, you'd expect of us to come to a stage where it's not about that. From the first time a black player played in the top division to where we are now, yes, we've come a long way in regards to athletes are now coming out. To like Asian, there's more Asian footballers. There's one in the Premier League who comes to my mind at the moment at Leicester. Hassan Chowdhury, I think his name is.
Hamza Chowdhury, yeah.
Hamza Chowdhury, who's made that breakthrough. But in football itself, they have come a long way, but at the same time, there is a load of work to do from a day-to-day basis.
So when you say that, obviously people are talking about it more, they'll be making it more aware. The Black Lives Matter thing happened because of the Floyd situation that happened in America, but that all of that has actually, you're trying to take steps forward, but what that's actually making people do is stand up against that and actually be even more vocal than they ever have been with their forthright views.
There's a weird in football, so to speak. There's a weird sort of demographic of there is a problem. There's an institutional problem, and that's obvious. But you've got 12%, I think it is from memory. 12% of the population is black. 12% of the population is black, whereas 30% of the Premier League is black. So there's a bigger representation than there is in England. Then you get 4% of coaches are black. Why do you think that is, Pre? Why do you think that there's such a difference between the number of players that are black? I say black, and I'm generalising in what's been said because it's from an interview with the chairman of there was an interview with Troy Townsend and another guy that I've taken the figures from, but there's only 4% of coaches. What have you seen and witnessed with what you do and who you've been around that can explain why only 4% of coaches are black, whereas there's going to be some really good top class coaches that are probably missing out? Well,
again, look, let's go back to right at the heart. We're talking about football. It's a football-based show, really. Let's go back to the head honchos who now had to step down of the FA. Greg Clark, his comments were about Asians just being the IT guys.
Yep.
And I had a friend of mine that actually worked at the FA in the IT department, and that's gone on to now. They've got their own management company. They manage, one of the biggest stars this country's produced, or this, Liverpool's Ian Rush. They manage Ian Rush, and everything they're doing is incredible. But it's about opportunity, and I have seen myself that there's players, there's coaches of different nationalities, of black and Asian backgrounds that are not getting the opportunities. And probably the question you asked me is, why is the percentage so high in the playing side of things and not going into the coaching? Because they simply don't think they'll get the chance, I think, a lot of the time. And then you get the odd few that have got the experiences that have tried, like the Paul Inces, the Sol Campbells,
Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank,
that have gone through the route, and they really have had to go through the bottom to try to get to the top. Whereas you've got, say, for argument's sake, your Frank Lampards, that have gone in, had a season at Derby County, and gone straight into like one of the biggest jobs in world football. Chelsea, no?
Is there in the players and the people that you've come across, is there a will to go into that side of things from these underrepresented people? Is there or cultures? Is there a will from the ex-Asian players, black players, former players to go into this side of thing, and it's just a blocker up, or is it that there's just no will to move on in that direction? What do you think?
It's a difficult question to answer because I haven't spoken to every Asian or
No.
But in my experience,
In your experience, yeah.
From what I've seen, there's some really top coaches that have played at the highest level. There's a coach, Taf Rahman, who's a pro licensed coach or a licensed coach. Not too sure, one of the two of them. He's played for Arsenal to a certain level, and he could be a coach in the first team of a professional team, the Premier League or the Championship. But he's had to go to get his opportunities. He's had to go abroad. He's had to go to South America. He's had to go to Asia or he's going to have to go to Australia. And there's other coaches at West Ham that I know really well. Turk's friends also, they're doing a similar sort of role. But, I think that's really is a minority, and hopefully that's something that we can raise awareness with just by a little bit. And, we need to let people know out there that, you've got to fight against it to try to make the change. Because
I think the other thing as well is you've got to remember when players are coming towards the end of their career, they've got to start making a decision on what they want to do moving forward. They either go into coaching, or if they want to stay in the game, or they become a pundit, etc., etc.
Or they become an agent.
Or become an agent. Now, if you can see that there's an area where people of the same colour or whatever you want to describe it are making a breakthrough, you're going to follow that because that's a path for you. But if you're looking up and you're looking at other black coaches that aren't even being given a chance to break through and become established managers, there's going to be a part of you that goes, I don't know if I'm up for that. I can't, I'm not going to break through it. And there's been a lot of those types of examples. Terry Connor, for example, who you guys may remember, he was an assistant. He's at Cardiff now. But he was an assistant manager at Wolves under Mick McCarthy for years. Yeah. Mick McCarthy left. He took over the role. And this was a perfect opportunity for someone who knows the club inside out. He didn't last there long at all. He kind of got pushed.
But then that's a different thing. How often does an assistant manager move into the senior, the main man's role, and actually be a success of it? Jason Tindall.
Look at the same thing. The same thing. Darren Moore at West Brom.
Who?
The same thing happened with Darren Moore at West Brom.
Was he a player and a coach when he was a player?
Yeah, he played there and he started coaching.
Started coaching, took over. He did all right, to be fair.
He did really well.
It just seems like the secondary. It seems like the second chances don't really come forward as much. There might be a failure stigma more behind that. Whereas I do believe Lampard will probably get another chance. I believe you look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was probably the worst manager that the Premier League's ever seen at Cardiff. But he went to Mulder and got another chance at Man United. I think that might be where the blockers may be up, is a second chance. You look at Sol Campbell. Sol Campbell has had a couple of jobs at most. There's a stigma behind him now.
Well, going back to a name that you mentioned before as well, Paul Ince. He's never had a managerial job that's lasted longer than a year. Okay, now that could be because he's just not good enough. But from when he started off in Macclesfield to, I think it was in Milton Keynes, Blackburn, I think he went back to Milton Keynes, done a bit of Notts County, and then finished at Blackpool. Right, 1 year in every single job. To me, that goes back to the whole Lampard thing that you just said. Lampard will be given a opportunity in football. I mean, I'm hearing he might be potentially going for the Bournemouth job or whatever else. He will get an offer the job because of who he is. He played for his country. His dad was in football. He's become a good name in the football. You know, he's related to other people. Will Paul Ince, I'm using him as an example, or other people like that, will they be given that opportunity second time round? As Glenn said, I don't think they will. I think there's that stigma of you failed and that's it.
There might be a trouble sort of stigma behind Paul Ince, and then there's a mental health stigma behind Sol Campbell, unfortunately, which has come from derogatory songs that have been sung about him and whatnot. But it seems to be a lot of the stigmas stick behind some of the black players or some of the sort of players from other cultures. Just on a side subject, moving forward from that, do we think that the sort of
sorry, mate. Before we move forward, one person I do want to talk about is Chrissy Hughton, mate, because Chrissy Hughton, you know, he done the hard yards at Tottenham for many a year.
Yeah,
really good example. Really good example.
You know, and you know, he went to the same school as me. He went to St. Bonds. Just had a playing career. It would be interesting to know how it was for him to play for the Irish national team as well. You know, it would be great. It'd be a great guest to actually get on here, or you know, get his views on this thing. But Chrissy Hughton, you know, how long was it? I think he was in coaching or in clubs for 20 odd years or 15 odd years before he got his first managerial role at Newcastle and QPR, and now he's at Forest and Brighton and, you know, wherever he's been. But you know, and then just talking about QPR, then you've got a coach like Chris Ramsey that was at Tottenham for years upon years and produced players there, and he was doing the same at QPR at the moment. He's the head of academy there, and then you know, a very seldom movement, because QPR is a very unique club. It's owned by Indians. It's owned by the Mittal family and Amit, and you've got Les Ferdinand, another cut. You know, you've got an Asian guy that owns it. You've got a black guy, the sport director there. You've got the head of academy, who is Chris Ramsey. So, you know, would that be, you know, that's in London, that's a cosmopolitan club. Would that be the same somewhere else in the country? You know, but there are people that are working within the industry, but there needs to be a lot more. They need to be encouraged. Again, like with players, certain coaches will just say when they hear about an Asian player, he's not built to play football.
Yeah, well, I think,
and that's actually happened, mate. That's actually happened to somebody I know, and they took it so seriously that they actually went and started their own podcast talking about these issues. And you know, we'll put some details out for Apu, and we can even share. I went on his podcast as an Asian agent in the football industry a few months ago, and you know, he's had somebody from the FA on there. He's had, you know, loads of different people within the football industry talk about these issues. So again, that's something that we can cross section on. But I thought I'd just
So you obviously and clearly watch just as much as football as anybody I know, and have sort of seen some changes recently as much as anybody in regards to sort of the punditry side. Now it's noticeable that they've tried to change the demographics in regards to your soccer Saturdays or your soccer specials, as well as your general sort of match day punditry sort of attendees. Do you think that it's do you think it's gone far too much the other way with having a multicultural sort of bench of pundits as well as a token female pundit? Or do you think that that's a good representation and that should be encouraged moving forward?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed a big difference. Not just in football, just in general with brands and adverts, roles being taken up in certain films and things like that. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. However, the problem is when you go too far left or too far right with something, it then causes a problem with one way or another. And we've found that out with people's views recently on the the Black Lives Matter protests or the Black Lives Matter swing that's in place. I think now when I look at and when I watch football, whether it be on BT, whether it be on Sky Sports, or whether it be on some of the other foreign channels in Abu Dhabi and things like that, I think they've now tried to represent everybody and tick those boxes. And I think that's a really important word there, ticking the boxes.
You think they've actually done that on purpose? You think
I do. And I don't think...
But not because that generation of player are retired players. So as we're going over the years of players playing in England, this is just giving examples. Say the 50s, 60s, 70s, the percentage of coloured players was maybe 10%, 5%. And then 80s, 90s keeps on going up, and we're saying that.
I don't think if it is, it's a pure coincidence, in my opinion. I think that where this movement happens,
and where these players are retiring, like you said, they're going into these roles. I remember one of my first gigs at One Click Sports Management that we arranged as a pundit was we got Michael Essien as his first ever pundit role in a Super Cup match at Fulham. That was two Arabian teams playing against each other. They wanted a local pundit within the UK, a well-known face. And Michael Essien hasn't ever been a pundit. And, he's such a nice guy. He was so shy about going on there. And luckily, when he won on there, it was Christiansen, the ex-Fulham player that was on there that he knew from before, and he felt comfortable. And, he done really well with it. But, because he's retiring and coming to the end of his career, that's a natural progression, because the knowledge a player at the highest level, like you've got Patrice Evra on TV and stuff like that. He's great comedy, not just comedy value, but he's great value, on TV.
He is, and I respect everything you've just said, and there's a lot of key and true points in that. However, I still believe that there is a box ticking exercise that's in place with that. Now, I don't think Sky Sports or BT will sit there and go, right, we've got a game on this Sunday, Man City versus Liverpool. We need to get a couple of, black people in or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, I'm just thinking out loud here. There's a good chance that someone like Vincent Kompany might be on there, okay? Now, Vincent Kompany was Man City's captain. He's been very successful. Have they picked him because it's Vincent Kompany, or have they done it tick a box? I'm not going to answer that.